Welcome to Zen Money Monday, weekly conversations with innovators, thought leaders, and entrepreneurial junkies about building good businesses, exploring what the idea of Zen money really means, and how to achieve it. With your host, author, business strategist, and Zen Money CFO, Liz LaJoy.
Welcome back to Zen Money Monday. Today, I want to talk about something that everyone wants to know about, which is paying ourselves from our hard work in our business. I was talking with somebody the other day, and he told me that he was on stage in front of a room full of business owners and entrepreneurs and asked the question, how do you know when it's time to take money out of the business for yourself? When is it safe to do that? How do you pay yourself? And he said that there was a ton of answers, and from his perspective, none of them were right. And I think all that does is indicate how much insecurity and misunderstanding there is around how we can draw money out of our businesses, especially in the first, I'd say, even 3 to 5 years. Because what happens is, and you've probably heard me talk about this, when we first start our business, we have what I call the business baby phase, where we're putting money in to start the business. Maybe we're using a credit card to fund that. Maybe we have a pool of money that we've saved up and we're using that to launch the business. Maybe we have a loan that we take out in another version, something that involves us putting money into the business, right? We're taking it from in our own pockets, establishing a container for the business, and money is going out the door primarily as we ramp up and start figuring out how to sell and make things happen in our business. So that goes on for a while. It feels really uncomfortable. And we move into the next phase, which is the business teenage phase. Should be our goal anyway. And what happens in the business teenage phase is we have money coming in. We've started getting the flywheel turning in terms of cash coming in the door. And most of that cash is getting eaten up by the business itself. And there isn't a whole lot left over for us, right? The teenager goes to the fridge, it drinks milk out of the carton, puts it back, hopefully, but you're not really getting a whole lot back from the business itself. That's the second stage. And then ultimately we can move into the business adult stage, where the business is running well, money's coming into the business itself is taken care of in terms of the expenses there, and there's money left over to pay you. And that's the stage that we all want to get to. It's super uncomfortable to be in phase 1 and phase 2, the baby and the teenage phase. And what I see happening a lot is that there are two kinds of business owners. There are the ones who take every last red cent out because they're cash strapped in their personal life, and they draw that out without a whole lot of planning for what the business needs. And then there's the other side of people who actually are afraid to take money out at all, and they want to keep the business, healthy, but it actually sort of stays in this business teenager phase because instead of planning to, hey, we've actually moved into the next phase, there is money for me to draw out for myself, they kind of just stay in this realm where whatever money's coming into the business gets spent in the business too. Both of those versions don't feel very good. The second one in particular doesn't feel very good for our spouses and the other people in our lives. If they're looking at our hard work and the money that's been put in the business, a lot of people then start to wonder when the payback is coming. And the people in the other version don't feel good either, because when we're having to move money around like that, it's kind of like the shell game. Money comes in, we take it out to pay our personal credit card bill, but our business credit card bill is coming due. So now I got to find cash from somewhere else, and I'm putting money back into the business to cover that. Or I'm, putting a hold on this payment in the business so that I can pay for something in my personal life. And it ends up being a very confusing, mishmash of money coming in, money going out that makes it really hard to get a handle on how healthy the business itself is. On top of that, you end up just with a lot of inconsistencies around paying yourself. So I would say the bottom line around this question is all about the financial equation. Surprise, surprise. When I say that, I mean, I want you to look at your actual numbers. You can look at the last week, you can look at the last month, the last 6 months. I actually like 3 to 6 months for this exercise because you can start to see some trends with all of this. But if you look at how much money has been coming into your business and you look at how much money you're spending on average, some months is going to be more, some months is going to be less. But if you've been in business for any amount of time, there should be some regular amount that's generally going out the door to cover your bases. And then we want to look at those big ticket items that maybe only hit once a year and average that out as well. So once you have an idea of the spend in your business, how much money you're spending to keep the lights on, to pay for subscriptions, maybe you have rent, maybe you work from home, so that's less of an issue. Maybe you have really high, internet expense that's associated with your business instead. There's all kinds of versions of the business spend, but knowing what you need to keep on hand, I should say, regularly every single month is going to allow you to better conscientiously and cognizantly plan for paying yourself. And again, the financial equation goes like this: income, i.e. revenues coming in your door, minus expenses, what we're spending in the business itself, equals profit. And the profit bucket is what we have to pay ourselves with. So if we know those numbers, we can start planning a little more effectively. And a good rule of thumb is, to not take all of the profit out and spend it. The good rule of thumb is to set a portion of that aside for your quarterly tax payments, sales tax if you happen to live in a place where you need to tack on sales tax, or if you're in Canada and there's HST and GST associated. I want to make sure that you have cash on hand so when those bills come due at the end of a quarter or the end of the year, you're not caught short trying to find sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. That's a really unfortunate place to be. So when you're thinking about paying yourself, if you've been in that first group of people where you're used to just taking everything out and putting it in your pocket, this now becomes an exercise in a little bit of planning and maybe some restraint, where we're saying, all right, I know that for my business to really grow, I need to pay attention to the way this math works, and I can't take out everything. I have $5,000 in cash in my checking account. I can't draw all of that down because I know I've got a credit card bill coming up, but then if I sell something the next week, then that'll free up some extra cash, and I'm still going to maintain a buffer so that down the road the business can ride out some lows. This is one other area that comes into play around paying ourselves, is we want to consistently have some money coming into our pocket, but we don't always plan for the down cycles too. And the reality is we're probably looking at one coming up now. If it hasn't already hit your business, it likely will in the next 2 to 3 years. That might be a long time away. As an estimate, it probably is going to happen sooner. Regardless, we want to plan for those rainy days, and we will talk about cash flow management and squirreling some money away in our next episode as well. But for now, in terms of paying yourself, just keep in mind that we have different areas for the money to go in our business, and we want to give it jobs to do. Primarily, we want to be able to pay you, of course. So there's a balancing act between making sure the business is healthy, but that you're also rewarded. And so when I talk about the people who never take any money out, those tend to be people who are almost become afraid to do it. I have a client who I worked with very early on who was doing quite well, but because she didn't really know her numbers, she didn't know. And she was always afraid to take money out, to the point where she would stand in the grocery store frozen food section and do some quick math for her cart and figure out in general how much it was going to cost her to check out. And then she would transfer that amount from her business checking account to her personal account so that she could go and purchase her groceries, because she was so averse to taking money out. And we looked through the numbers, and I encouraged her to see that, after 10 years of building her business, she consistently could take out a very, nice yet minimal baseline, and the business wouldn't suffer. And once she got comfortable with that, she wasn't making these transfers randomly 2, 3, 10 times a month. Just once a month, she took a certain dollar amount and she set it and forgot it. And now it's part of her financial routine, and she doesn't spend any more time thinking about it. And imagine the energy that frees up. Alternatively, I have seen people who undercut their own business success in terms of paying themselves. So I do recommend making sure that things are financially healthy as much as you can in your business, and just be really aware that in the early years, it may be a choice between the health of the business and putting, significant cash in your own pocket. So we need to ask ourselves what we're going to do to make up the difference. Are we going to have some lean years in terms of what we're able to do with our family? It can be very frustrating. When we start to do well in our business, we want to spend more in our business to get in front of other people, or to, share rooms with people. By that, I mean go to conferences and things like that. And so we spend extra in our business as we're growing. We feel like we've gotten to another level. Our income says we're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you have that kind of business, you should be able to pay yourself a decent salary, right? So then we automatically pay ourselves, except that we're also spending more, and the numbers don't really quite match up. So we get caught short at tax time, or we have to go into debt and then we're living off debt, even though things look good on paper, they're not, when you dig in a little bit, they're not as happy as they might be. So we need to be aware of what's going on. Use that financial equation. Again, income minus business expenses equals profit, and the profit is the tax and pay you bucket. And when we know those numbers, we can month over month be very aware of and very clean and clear about how much we can take out of our business. And it's a good idea to do this for yourself regularly if you don't have consistent cash flow, especially if you don't have consistent sales yet, or if you're in the nature of a business where you're seasonal, then we want to have really tight tabs on how much money does the business need to make to continue paying you in those months where you don't have the revenue or the revenue is down. And you can factor that into your major plan. You can build it the other way up, as we talked about in the last podcast around pricing, right? If you need to take $10,000 out of your business every single month to cover your mortgage and pay for family needs and whatever, I'm just using round numbers here, and your business requires at least $5,000 in expenses every month, sometimes more, but let's say 5, then you need to be making at least $15,000 plus whatever you're going to set aside for taxes. So it's probably more like $20,000 or $22,000 a month, right? Once you get comfortable with that math and strip away the anxiety around all of it, it's easier to see, oh boy, if I need $20,000 a month to get this $10,000 in my pocket, or 25, then I might need to raise my prices to make that happen. Alternatively, if I don't want to raise my prices, I could spend less in my business. If I can't do either of those two things, then I need to take less home. Overall, though, the main goal here is for you to be rewarded, again, for the hard work of business building. And if we don't have that as part of your plan, that's a problem too. I want you to get in the habit of taking some money out when there's a little profit, even if it's $20 a month, in the beginning, I should say. Obviously, the goal is to get you to a point where you have an official quote unquote salary, even if you're not running payroll, where you consistently can pay yourself a baseline so that you can feel like this is a real job, because it is a real job. It's more than a job, really. And then the cool thing about that is if you have a number that you can generally take out, I'll use myself as an example. I know what our baseline is. So monthly I take out a certain amount. And then once a quarter, I look at where we actually are. And if there's extra money in the account and I've already saved up what I want for buffer, and our tax set aside is where it should be, and there's extra in the account, then once a quarter, I take out some extra and I can make an, one-off decision about that. And then we get to do things fun in our family. We get to, put it in the vacation fund, or, put it in the retirement fund, or do something else with it for our house. But that way I'm covered. My husband knows what to expect month over month that the business can, at a baseline, as I say, support us with. And then the quarterly stuff is kind of like fun money, right? Especially if we can live without it, then it becomes this whole, fun dreamer place to go, oh, what are we going to do with that quarterly money? And if that quarter wasn't great, then maybe I don't take it out and we just let it ride and help support the business, or if I know that I have a big expense coming down the pike, I might hang on to it for the same reason. Because I don't know about you, but I find taking the time shuttling money back and forth between accounts kind of a waste of time. I would much rather have a plan in place, work it, and only touch that stuff once in a while, because it opens me up to have more energy and time to focus on serving our clients and doing things like this podcast. So I hope that concept and that discussion around how to pay yourself is meaningful for you. Like I said, in the next episode, we will be talking about cash flow and how you can really master that monster. I know that feels like an overwhelming thing for many of us, and we will talk about that in more detail as we go along in this series, especially. But for now, if you want to dive into looking at some more paying yourself models and want to check out our free Zen Money Mastery series, which is a series of 7 workshops to help you really build up your version of Zen Money in your business and look at what's going on through the lens of your numbers, all you have to do is visit zenmoneymap.com/workshop to sign up for that free series and get started with all of this. Hope to see you there, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks, and have an awesome day.